I love having conversations, so let's get into it.
Let's do it. Benjamin, great to meet you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out for the program today. I appreciate it.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. So before we get into your good work, I always start with this question. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed the world, changed all of us. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you do things today?
Wow, that is a deep question.
Yeah.
Uh, Weirdly for me, it changed my life much different than the people around me because when COVID hit, I was already in a deep pit of isolation and depression before COVID hit. And due to falling prey to addiction after I retired from the military and not having dealt with all of that trauma from combat and a lot of stuff from childhood. But when the entire world went into isolation, it was a weird contrast because I was looking at everybody around me who was struggling so heavily with the way that I had been living my life for like 5 to 6 years at that point, and I was seeing the way that it was really impacting them. And then it sort of made me reflect on, was I experiencing the same things mentally that everybody else was, but I was just really repressing it? And so COVID for me was a weirdly enlightening experience because it gave me that contrast between the way I was living my life and the way that I wanted to live my life. And it was really the wake up call I needed to be like, hey, I need to put my life back together and do something, or else I'm just going to continue to live in this pit and go absolutely nowhere.
So talk to me about the work that you're doing today. I'm going to put you in front of 12-year-olds. You're at career day, and one of the kids wants you to synthesize your day job to make sense to their brains.
That's pretty easy. Well, I'm a professional life coach,
Yeah.
and I do that in a few different settings. I work at the university, the College of Charleston. So here they just stood up a program called the Design Your Life program. And it's a fantastic program because instead of just putting college kids in a degree program and then sending them out the door with absolutely no idea what they want to do for the rest of their life, we sit down with them. Like I'm sitting down with incoming freshmen right now. So before they even start their educational experience, to really holistically look at who they are as individuals, where they want to end up in life, what they're passionate about, what they want to do with their social lives, and then integrating their educational experience as a holistic process instead of just handing them a piece of paper and getting them out the door. So, like, we're really trying to change the way that universities engage with their students and then give them something more than just a piece of paper. And then I also work on the private side. I have a private coaching business called the Initiation Source, where I specialize in identity transformation. I mean, life transformation as a whole, but for me, identity is the building block of how we show up in the world. So addressing who we believe we are really affects the way we show up in the world. And I help people change their unconscious beliefs and then help create new patterns and evidence that they're becoming the people that they want to show up in the world as. So I love coaching and I approach it from quite a few different angles.
So what did you want to be when you were 12? What was your dream gig?
Probably a lawyer.
Okay.
Lawyer or like the president. In fact, I wanted to be the president up until very recently when I had to sit down with myself and realize that I'm just not the type of man who's cut out for that kind of work. But I'm deeply passionate about helping people, and I'm a natural born problem solver. I'm very good at troubleshooting logic. I mean, I'm a retired bomb squad technician, so that used to be like what I did professionally as well. So just give me a problem to solve and people to help, and I'm happy.
How did this happen? Take me back to your childhood, where you were born and raised, and the seeds that were planted that became the military, bomb squad, coaching, recovering from addiction. How did all of these elements become the strength and the vision that you have for your life today?
That's a great question. Uh, I would say my childhood more negatively impacted me, and that's what forced the growth in me to become who I am today. So I mean, I didn't have a bad childhood, but we, our parents pass on the wounds that they weren't able to heal for themselves. And my parents just had hard lives. And like I love them and I love what they were able to do with the hand that they were dealt. And now I'm just trying to do the best with the hand I was dealt. But I was born in a very small farm town called Andover in Connecticut. And I love small town life. Charleston is too busy for me, but I love small town life. I love large open places and the hills and the forests of New England. And I I struggled to fit in when I was a kid because I was always, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I was always much smarter than everybody around me. And I was raised in a very, very religious household. That like that was the backbone of how we were raised was the do this because the Bible says so mentality. And I have nothing bad or good to say about religion. However, I was the kind of kid who needed to know why. And because nobody was able to give me a better answer than because I said so, I became a very rebellious spirit because I always could sense something very hypocritical in the way that I was being raised. And so as soon as I graduated high school at 17, like the military for me was an escape. Like I would love to sit here and tell you that I was like super patriotic and I wanted to like save the world, but really at the end of the day, like I just wanted out of Connecticut and I wanted to go become my own person. And the reason I became a bomb squad technician was because that was the when you go into the military, you take what's called the ASVAB. It's like a placement score, and it dictates what jobs you're allowed to take. And because I scored so high, like I had my pick of any job that I wanted. And when I went to the recruiter, they're like, "Hey, we really need people for these jobs." And you have to remember in 2006, when I joined, that was like the height of IED warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan. So bomb squad technicians were in high demand and it had the highest starting bonus. So I was like, man, when you're 17 years old and somebody says, hey, we're going to give you $10,000 to sign on this dotted line, you're like, sign me up. Yep. So, uh, and then because I lived, I mean, I feel like I've lived 30 or 40 different lives in my 37 years on this planet, but I've had to figure everything out on my own. And like, I both love and despise my parents for making me figure everything out on my own because it's made me so strong and capable. But at the same time, I've lived in fight or flight my entire life because I've never really had a chance to just like breathe. And so now that I've learned all of these lessons for myself, like navigating what identity looks like outside of the uniform or outside of our family units or the way that we're raised, I I love helping people avoid the struggles of having to go through that process on their own. So that's really what led me to the coaching world and even my writing, because like we don't have, for me, especially as a recovered addict, I've realized that community is the medicine to everything that ails us, like our traumas, our loneliness, our anxiety, our depressions, our addictions, like community. Like that's it's that simple. And so for like that's what I aim to provide to people is that sense of support and that loving sense of accountability as they navigate the same things that I've had to navigate throughout my life.
So, who's been that inspiration, that hero that's allowed you to become who you are? Maybe they saw you for who you are early on, or they've always kind of been there and allowed you to become who you are today.
No one. I when I say I've had to figure this out on my own, like in fact, I'll give you an abstract answer, and it's the version of myself that I want to become. Like that who is who I've had to learn to lean on during these hard times is I've lived the life I don't want to live. I've lived the life of separation and isolation and addiction and hedonism. And for me now, to show up in the world as the sort of man who genuinely cares about other people and cares about himself and does the hard things instead of the easy things and is now laying the foundation to live the life of love and connection that I've yearned for my entire life. Like that's what's kept me going all these years is holding on to that vision of myself that I've been striving to become.
So if you could meet one person on the planet right now that you find inspirational, just what they've done, where they've come from, where they are now, you could have a lunch and hang out with them. Is there anyone that you would love to meet and talk to on the planet right now?
Do they have to be alive?
No, it could be a ghost.
I would love to sit down with George Washington.
Yeah.
I I'm a big fan of like early American history, and everything that I have read about that man just screams the type of man that I'm trying to become. The guy who does the right thing for no other reason than like he knows it's the right thing to do. The guy who leads not because he wants the credit, but because everybody around him sees how strong of a leader and how selfless he is, and they beg him to do that sort of job. And I would pick his brain for hours just about how he saw the world, or how he saw his world, how he saw himself, and how he fit into the grand scheme of things. Because we make these figures larger than life when we look back on them, but they had to have just been some swamp Yankees who were just like, hey, we're sick of this shit, and just decided to like change something. And so I would love to just pick his brain about, what it means to him to be a good man, to make change, to do what's right. I don't living. Do you know who Jocko Willink is?
I've heard of the name. Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Discipline Equals Freedom. He's a retired Navy SEAL commander, but he deals a lot in self accountability and transformation. And so, living, I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him just to pick his brain about where he's come from and how he sees the world as well.
So, in your methodology of coaching with what you're doing with your clients, who have you emulated from a coaching perspective? Have you had a coach that influenced the way that you do your coaching? Who philosophically has been foundational for you in your approach to coaching?
Nobody that I've met directly, but I'm a big subscriber to Carl Jung and Jungian psychology. I study psychology in college, and the way that Jung conceptualizes the shadow and then the integration of the shadow with the higher self is really the building blocks of my coaching approach. In fact, the coaching program that I developed is called the Reforge Protocol, and it's essentially a phase program, or a program broken into phases that address the steps of Jungian shadow work, which lead people from identifying unconscious behavioral routines all the way to the other side of building new habits and behaviors. So, yeah, probably Carl Jung is the biggest influence on the way that I coach today.
So, what is the energy for you every day when you have to get in there and coach people? You have to get into the psychology and the murky, dark pieces of humanity, but you also have a soul and you have to do it all at a high level. What is it that gets you up every day and motivates you to do this work at a high level?
Remembering where I came from, that, as I said a little bit ago, I have experienced what it's like to consciously walk on the hedonic treadmill, to wake up every morning with no other goal than to consume and to enjoy life, and with no direction, no intentionality. And you would think that that sounds like freedom, but really that's a cage that we put ourselves in by being a slave to everything around us. When we externalize our purpose and our meaning, like, we have no control and no autonomy over who we are and how we're showing up in the world. So for me, really it's remembering who I used to be, and never wanting to become that person again. And the way that I interface that with the people that I'm helping is I tear myself open on a daily basis and let everybody see every nasty, gross part of my being, as well as the good parts of my being, simply because that is what allows people to understand that they're not alone in this process. as I said, I studied psychology, and the reason that I pivoted away from counseling and towards coaching was as a therapist or a counselor, it's all about turning yourself into a mirror, about creating that state of transference so people mirror their own emotions and experiences off of you and back at themselves. But what I love about the coaching process is it's very action oriented, and that allows me to become an active participant in the growth of other people by allowing them to connect to me through my own experiences and my own perspectives. So by remaining authentic and then accountable, not only to them, but to myself, like it creates this dynamic, which I've really seen work wonders in people who are trying to change and overhaul their lives.
One of the big things that can change the trajectory of our lives is just human kindness. Someone doing something in a selfless way just because they are who they are. What's one of the nicest things that somebody's done for you in your life?
My current executive director, and this isn't like a specific incident where I could just say, oh, this person did X, but my current executive director at the College of Charleston in the life design program, her name is Kristen McMullen. She's also my co-host on our podcast here at the university. And she is just the brightest light that I have ever experienced in the world. Just, I, because of my past experiences, I find myself sometimes becoming jaded in the world. Like when I meet people who are like overly optimistic or kind or bright, a part of me wants to assume that they're like covering up for something, that like it's fake, that it's projected. And after I got to know her for 6, 8 months, and she just showed up consistently that way every single day, just smile on her face. She would be get 2 hours of sleep and be swamped with work. But because she just loves what she's doing so much, like it did, like she just radiates that energy. And so it wasn't a specific thing that she did, even though seeing my potential and then coming and finding me and asking me to come work for her in this program was like a huge thing. But just the example that she has set for me for like how I want to show up in the world with just an infinite amount of compassion and understanding and kindness is like I never had an example of that in my life, and knowing that it exists gives me that like north star to follow as I try to navigate the world.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. Excuse me. You walk into a room, there's a film projector, you click play, and a 60-second highlight reel of your life comes up on the wall. Is that young version of you going to believe your life turned out this way?
No, no. I mean, who I feel like I have died and been reborn at least a dozen times over the even just the last 10 years alone. And God, that 18-year-old version of me, no, he wouldn't believe it at all. In fact,
Yeah.
if I tried to go back and even warn him or try to like help him, I know myself at that point in time, he wouldn't even have listened to me. Like he was that arrogant and that, cocksure that he would be like, you don't know anything. I have this. I know what I'm doing. I have this under control. That would be an interesting conversation.
That yeah, for sure. So of that highlight reel that you looked at, what are you the happiest about, the proudest of?
Not giving up. Like I, I mean, most people are aware of how bad the veteran suicide problem is. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There were a lot of nights where I would be sitting in a bathtub with a pistol on the counter, just wishing to God that I had the gumption to actually go through with it because like it hurt that bad to be alive. And nights where I would be laying and staring at the ceiling and just praying to God that I wouldn't wake up the next morning because I couldn't deal with the loneliness or the pain anymore. And so to find meaning and purpose in those experiences and now being able to transmute them into helping other people, who are in similar situations that I was in, that I'm tearing up a little bit right now, even
Yeah,
thinking about it. But that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
it's huge. So after this long, winding road that you've been on up to this point right now, everyone has a perception of you.
I wish I had a good answer for you, but every time I think I know who I am, I'm proven wrong.
Yeah,
And what all of my work in the shadow, especially in myself and with other people, has taught me is that every single person has every single aspect of humanity inside of them, good and bad. That we are all capable of showing up in the absolute worst ways and the absolute best ways, given our life experiences, our circumstances, and the stimuluses that we face on any given day. And so for me, like, I know that I am both everything and I am nothing. And I don't want to get overly philosophical here, but it's like, I'm not any one thing, and nor is anybody else. We are and embracing everything that our human nature has to offer, both good and bad, is what gives life its spice.
for sure. So I got to know if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history. You mentioned Washington, the early days, but if there was an event, a thing that you could watch with your own eyes, where would you go? What would you want to see unfold?
Does it have to be here on Earth?
Oh no, we can go wherever we want.
I would love to go back to the start of the universe.
Yeah,
I, like, not that anybody would believe me, but I would love to see what actually happened. Whether it was a big bang, whether it was the collapse of another universe that created this universe, like, just to, from a cosmic perspective, understand the fabric of what's going on. I don't know. I would absolutely love that.
that
Or
would be
see a star go supernova. That'd be really cool
yeah,
too.
that would be totally cool. Yeah. And there's been AI models of that. That's a trip, man. Like all of that stuff. That's the cool thing about technology is that you can actually see these recreations of things. But yeah, to actually see the beginnings of everything, that would be mind-blowing. And I gotta wonder in that moment how your brain would conceptualize it. Like would it be would you have to open up an extra chamber in your brain to be able to suck it in because it would be so huge, you know?
Guaranteed. Like, I don't think you need like a heavy dose of psilocybin while you were sitting there in
That's
space to
right.
understand that. Yeah.
For sure. So if anybody wants to reach out, hire you, questions, your podcast, any of the good work you're doing, where do they go?
If you're interested in my writing or the book that I just published last year, go to benjaminjohnlee.com. If you're interested in anything on the coaching side or working with me, I do free consultations. If you're looking to hire a life coach, go to theinitiationsource.com. If you just want to chat or have any questions for me, you can reach me on Instagram at benjamin.john.lee. And if you're interested in my podcast, it's the Low Country Life Design Podcast. It actually just launched 2 weeks ago. We're going to be releasing our third episode this week. But we have like a backlog of 20 episodes to go. So if you want to join early and come along for the ride, we'd love to have you.
Okay. I will put links to this all in the show notes. Benjamin, what a great conversation. Thank you for opening up, being raw and real, and putting the story out there. And it's a wonderful story, man. It absolutely is. So thank you, sir. I appreciate your time today.
You're very welcome, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. And